He addressed the invitation to the disgraced ex, a command to watch him crown his new son as heir to the Warang syndicate. Jovi walked in carrying a little girl. Same dark eyes, same sharp jawline as the man on stage. The ceremony collapsed instantly. His partner lunged at guards. The syndicate, doctor confessed to forging bloodline evidence. And the elders declared one truth: the real heir just arrived. He wanted to humiliate her. Instead, she destroyed him. Before we dive in, if you love stories about strong women who refuse to stay silent, hit that subscribe button for Ebony and Pearl stories. You won't regret it. The envelope was heavy, thick black parchment that felt like stone in Jovi Sinclair's hands. It smelled faintly of sandalwood and smoke, the signature scent of the Warang Syndicate's headquarters. A scent from a life she had clawed her way out of 6 years ago. She stood in the small kitchen of her rented apartment in a quiet coastal town thousands of miles from Seoul. Sunlight streamed through lace curtains, illuminating the modest space she shared with her daughter, a cozy refuge with mismatched furniture, children's drawings taped to the walls, and the faint smell of cinnamon from breakfast still lingering in the air. It was warm, safe, far from danger, far from the underworld, far from the man who had tried to destroy her. But the envelope in her hand was a reminder that the past never truly lets go. It wasn't addressed to Ms. Sinclair. It wasn't addressed to Jovi, the name she used at the local market or Ariel's preschool. It was addressed to the disgraced ex. Her knuckles went white around the edges of the parchment. Even without opening it, she knew who sent it. Only one man was arrogant enough, cruel enough, to reach across an ocean just to land a blow. Song Hyuk-jun. Mama. Jovi's posture softened instantly. She dropped the envelope on the wooden table and turned. Ariel, her 5-year-old daughter, stood in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Even at such a young age, she was striking, tall for her age, with a cascade of tight curls framing her face and a bone structure that was already showing the sharp, elegant angles of her father's bloodline. Her skin was a rich, warm brown, but her eyes, those impossible, piercing dark eyes, were unmistakably his. "I'm here, baby," Jovi murmured, brushing a hand over Ariel's hair. "Go back to bed. It's not morning yet." "I had a bad dream," Ariel mumbled, but her gaze, sharp and observant beyond her years, fixed on the black envelope. "What's that?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Just junk mail." Ariel didn't look convinced. She stepped closer, her small nose wrinkling. "It smells wrong," she said quietly, her voice carrying an eerie certainty. "It smells like him." Jovi's blood turned cold. Ariel had never met Song Hyuk-jun. Jovi had never even spoken his name aloud in their home. But blood recognized blood. Instinct recognized danger. Even at 5 years old, Ariel could sense the shadow of the man who had cast them both away. Jovi tucked Ariel back into her small bed, kissed her forehead, and returned to the kitchen. Her hands trembled as she broke the wax seal, embossed with the dragon crest of the Warang Syndicate. Inside, written in formal Korean calligraphy, "You are hereby summoned by order of the Warang Syndicate to attend the official naming ceremony of the Syndicate's designated heir, born of Song Hyuk-jun and Park Ji-hae. Your presence is commanded to bear witness to the glorious continuation of the Warang bloodline, a legacy bestowed only upon the worthy." A summons, a command. But the line at the bottom, scrawled in Hyuk-jun's sharp, aggressive handwriting, was the real message. "Come and see what a real empire looks like, Jovi. See the heir a real partner gave me, and reflect on your failure. If you can't stand people who humiliate and discard others just to feed their ego, hit subscribe. Only cowards and bullies won't." Jovi sank into a chair, the invitation trembling in her hands. The memory hit her like a physical blow, as fresh and raw as the day it happened. 6 years ago, the Warang Syndicate headquarters, the Great Hall. She had been 24 years old, terrified, and desperately trying to prove her worth. Song Hyuk-jun had chosen her from dozens of recruits, a brilliant strategist with a sharp mind for negotiation, territory expansion, and reading people. She had helped him secure 3 major alliances in 6 months, doubling the syndicate's influence faster than anyone thought possible. But Hyuk-jun didn't want a partner. He wanted a weapon he could control. And Jovi questioned too much, pushed back too often, demanded transparency when he demanded blind obedience. That made her dangerous. He had summoned her to the main hall. It was full. Every ranking member of the Hwarang Syndicate was there. Older men in tailored suits, younger enforcers with cold eyes. Park Ji-hye, the daughter of a powerful political family, standing beside Hyuk-jun with a smug smile on her lips. Jovi Sinclair. Hyuk-jun's voice had boomed across the hall, devoid of warmth. Step forward. She had obeyed, her heart pounding, sensing the trap but unable to escape it. Evidence has come to light, he continued, his tone flat and final, that you have been feeding information to rival syndicates. You have betrayed the Hwarang name. No, Jovi had gasped, her voice breaking. Hyuk-jun, that's a lie. I would never. Silence. The word cracked like a whip. He held up a folder. Documents she had never seen, emails with forged signatures, fabricated proof of her so-called betrayal. You are disloyal, he declared. You are a liability, and you are no longer welcome in this organization. Jovi had reached for his arm, desperate. Please, listen to me. Someone set me up. He jerked away from her touch as if she were diseased. You are exiled, he said coldly. If you are ever seen in Hwarang territory again, you will be killed on sight. The guards had dragged her out, past the smirking face of Park Ji-hye, past the silent, judging stares of men she had once called allies. What Hyuk-jun didn't know, what she had barely known herself, was that the nausea she'd felt that morning wasn't from fear. She had been 6 weeks pregnant with his child. Present day. Jovi stared at the invitation, her jaw tight. Come and see what a real empire looks like. He wanted to mock her. He wanted to parade his new partner and his so-called heir in front of the woman he had discarded, to prove his decision had been right, to complete her humiliation. But he had no idea what he was inviting into his home. For 6 years, she had lived in hiding. She had worked quiet jobs, tutoring, consulting under fake names, building a life from nothing. She had raised Ariel with a gentleness entirely absent from the world she'd escaped, teaching her daughter to be kind, strong, and aware. But she had also taught her to recognize danger. And now, Ariel was showing signs of something Jovi couldn't ignore. A quiet dominance, a sharp intuition, an ability to read people that no 5-year-old should possess. Ariel had her father's eyes, his bone structure, his presence. Jovi walked to the small bedroom and looked down at her daughter, now fast asleep again, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. A reflection of your failure, the invitation had said. Jovi's lips curled into a cold, dangerous smile. Oh, Hyuk-jun, she whispered to the empty room. You want to see what failure looks like. She picked up the invitation and stared at it. You want to mock me in front of your entire syndicate. She folded the parchment carefully. Fine. We'll attend your little ceremony. She returned to Ariel's bedside and gently lifted her daughter into her arms. Ariel stirred, but didn't wake, instinctively wrapping her small arms around Jovi's neck. Jovi pressed a kiss to her forehead. Let's show them what they tried to throw away, she whispered. And for the first time in 6 years, Jovi Sinclair wasn't running. She was walking straight into the lion's den, with the one thing Song Hyuk-jun never knew he had lost. If you believe people who destroy others to protect their pride deserve to be exposed, subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories and comment what time you're watching this. Let's stand together against the Hyuk-juns of the world. Jovi didn't sleep that night. She sat at the small wooden table, the black invitation lying in front of her like a declaration of war. By the time dawn broke over the coastal town, her decision was final. She would return to Seoul. She would walk into the Hwarang Syndicate headquarters, and she would show Song Hyuk-jun exactly what he had thrown away. But she couldn't do it alone. Over the next 2 days, Jovi prepared with the precision of a military operation. She packed light, 2 small suitcases containing only essentials. She removed anything that could identify them. Old photos, documents with her real name, anything connected to their quiet life by the sea. She dressed herself in a simple white blouse and tailored pants, symbolic of purity and quiet power. For Ariel, she chose a matching white dress with delicate embroidery at the collar. They would stand out, they would be seen, and they would be impossible to ignore. On the morning of their departure, Jovi knelt in front of Ariel and held her small hands. "Listen carefully, baby," Jovi said softly, her voice steady. "Where we're going, there will be a lot of people. Some of them might say things that sound mean. Some might try to scare us." Ariel's dark eyes, so much like her father's, watched her mother with an intensity that made Jovi's chest tighten. "What do I do, Mama?" "3 rules," Jovi said. "Stay beside me. Don't speak unless I tell you to. And observe everything. Can you do that?" Ariel nodded solemnly. "Stay beside you. Don't speak. Observe." Jovi kissed her forehead. "Good girl." But before they could enter the lion's den, Jovi needed an ally. Someone with power. Someone who could ensure they wouldn't be killed the moment they stepped through the door. She made a single phone call. 2 days later, she stood in the private office of Ryu Min-jae, leader of the Baekdu Syndicate, one of the few criminal organizations powerful enough to rival the Warang. Min-jae was a tall man in his late 30s, with sharp features, silver-streaked hair, and steady gray eyes that missed nothing. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit and leaned against his desk, arms crossed, studying Jovi with a mix of surprise and caution. "Jovi Sinclair," he said slowly as if testing the name. "I thought you were dead." "Not dead," Jovi replied, her voice calm. "Just careful." Min-jae had been present 6 years ago, standing in the back of the Great Hall when Hyuk-jun had publicly exiled her, while the other syndicate members had watched with cold indifference or quiet satisfaction. Min-jae's face had shown something different. Conflict. He had been the only one who looked like he didn't believe the accusations. "I need your help," Jovi said. Min-jae raised an eyebrow. "Help with what?" She placed the black invitation on his desk. He read it, and his jaw tightened. "He sent this to you." "He wants to humiliate me in front of the entire syndicate," Jovi said. "He wants me to see his new heir and remember my place." Min-jae's eyes darkened. "This is beyond cruel, Jovi, even for Hyuk-jun, which is why I'm going to accept." Min-jae stared at her. "You can't be serious. It's a trap. He exiled you with a death order the moment you step foot in Warang territory." "I won't be alone," Jovi interrupted. "I'll have you." Min-jae was silent for a long moment. Then he shook his head. "Jovi, why? Why walk into this? What could possibly be worth the risk?" Jovi took a slow breath. She had kept her secret for 6 years. Not even her closest friends knew the full truth. But she couldn't do this without help. "He didn't just exile me, Min-jae," she said quietly. "He exiled his legacy." Min-jae frowned. "What are you talking about?" "I was pregnant when he cast me out." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Min-jae's eyes widened. He straightened, his expression shifting from confusion to shock. "You have his child." "A daughter," Jovi said. "Ariel. She's 5 years old, and she has his eyes." Min-jae ran a hand through his hair, his mind clearly racing. The political implications were staggering. A MAFIA boss who had rejected and exiled the mother of his firstborn heir, in favor of a politically convenient partner and a child who might not even be his biological successor. It was a scandal that could tear the Warang syndicate apart. "Does he know?" Min-jae asked. "No. And you want to tell him, in front of the entire syndicate, at the naming ceremony of his so-called heir?" "Yes." Min-jae stared at her, then let out a low breath. "You're not going there for revenge. You're going there for justice." "I'm going there to show them the truth," Jovi said. "I'm going to show them what he threw away. And then I'm going to walk out." Min-jae was quiet for a long moment. Then a grim smile touched his lips. Hyuk-jun won't just be enraged. He'll be ruined. He extended his hand. It would be my honor to escort you, Jovi Sinclair. She took his hand. Thank you. The journey to Seoul was tense. They traveled in Min Jae's private convoy, 3 black SUVs with tinted windows, flanked by elite security. Jovi sat in the center vehicle with Ariel on her lap, while Min Jae sat across from them, his expression unreadable. As they passed through the outskirts of the city, Jovi noticed the checkpoints. Men in dark suits, watching from street corners. Cameras mounted on lampposts. The Hwarang syndicate's reach was everywhere. Ariel, who had been quiet for most of the trip, suddenly tugged on Jovi's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, "those men are following us." Jovi glanced out the window. A black sedan had been tailing them for the past 10 minutes. Min Jae noticed too. "Hyuk-jun scouts," he said calmly. "They're watching to see who arrives." "Are we in danger?" Jovi asked. "Not yet," Min Jae replied. "They won't touch us while we're under Baekdu protection. But once we're inside..." He met her gaze. "Jovi, you need to understand. The moment you step into that building, you're walking into enemy territory. If this goes wrong..." "It won't," Jovi said firmly. Min Jae studied her for a moment, then nodded. "You've changed." "I had to." The Hwarang Syndicate headquarters loomed ahead, a massive skyscraper fortress of black glass and steel that seemed to swallow the sunlight. It was a monument to power, wealth, and intimidation. Elite guards in tailored suits stood at every entrance. Security cameras tracked every movement. The air itself felt heavy, oppressive, as if the building were daring anyone to challenge it. Jovi's heart pounded as the convoy pulled up to the main entrance. Min Jae stepped out first, his presence commanding immediate respect. The guards recognized him instantly and stepped aside. Jovi took a slow breath, then lifted Ariel into her arms. "Ready, baby?" she whispered. Ariel nodded, her small arms wrapping tightly around Jovi's neck. Jovi stepped out of the vehicle. The guards stared, and then, slowly they parted. Jovi Sinclair walked through the same doors she had been dragged out of 6 years earlier, this time on her own terms. The empire that had tried to erase her was about to learn the truth. The ceremony hall was a cathedral of power. Hundreds of people filled the space. Syndicate members in tailored suits, allied families dripping with wealth, and political figures whose faces Jovi recognized from news broadcasts. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, casting golden light over marble floors. The air smelled of expensive cologne, imported whiskey, and ambition. At the front of the hall, on a raised platform draped in red silk, stood Song Hyuk-jun. He looked exactly as Jovi remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp features that could have been carved from stone. He wore a tailored black suit with the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, revealing the edge of intricate tattoos that crawled up his neck and across his collarbone. His presence dominated the room effortlessly, radiating authority and control. Beside him stood Park Ji-hai, his partner, dressed in a crimson gown that matched the silk drapery. She held a small boy, no more than 3 years old, dressed in a miniature suit. The child looked uncomfortable, squirming in her arms, his features soft and unremarkable. Hyuk-jun raised a glass of champagne toward the crowd. "To the Hwarang Syndicate," he declared, his voice carrying across the hall. "To our future, and to my son, the next leader of this empire." The room erupted in applause. Glasses clinked. Voices rose in congratulations. Ji-hai smiled triumphantly, holding the boy higher for all to see. And then the doors at the back of the hall opened. The applause faltered. Heads turned. Jovi Sinclair stood framed by the entrance, dressed in pristine white, her daughter balanced on her hip. The light from the chandeliers seemed to follow her, illuminating them both like a spotlight on a stage. The entire hall fell silent. Hyuk-jun froze mid-sentence. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the marble floor. Jovi didn't move. She simply stood there, her expression calm, her gaze locked on the stage. Ariel, dressed in her matching white dress, looked out at the sea of faces with wide, unblinking eyes, those impossible dark eyes that seemed to pierce through the crowd. The whispers started immediately. Is that the disgraced strategist? She was exiled. Who's the child? An older man near the front, one of the syndicate elders, leaned forward, squinting. His face went pale. She looks just like him, he muttered. Another elder turned sharply. What did you say? The girl, the first elder said louder now. Look at her eyes. The whispers spread like wildfire. Jovi walked forward slowly, her heels clicking against the marble. Min-jae followed close behind, his presence a silent declaration of protection. The crowd parted instinctively, creating a path toward the stage. Ariel clung to her mother's shoulder, her small face turned toward Hyuk-jun. Even at 5 years old, her posture mirrored his, the tilt of her chin, the sharpness in her gaze, the quiet dominance that radiated from her like an aura. Hyuk-jun descended from the stage, his movements slow, deliberate. His face was unreadable, but his hands trembled slightly at his sides. Jovi, he said, his voice hoarse. She didn't respond. She simply stood there, letting the room see. Ji-hai's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Guards! Remove this woman immediately. But no one moved. The elders were staring. The younger members exchanged confused glances. Even the guards looked uncertain, their eyes flickering between Hyuk-jun and the child in Jovi's arms. Because Ariel wasn't just similar to Hyuk-jun. She was identical. The same bone structure, the same eyes, the same commanding presence that seemed far too large for such a small frame. One of the elders stood, his voice sharp. Hyuk-jun, who is this child? Hyuk-jun didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on Ariel, his breathing unsteady. Another elder rose, his tone accusing. She has your eyes, your features. She's lying. Ji-hai shrieked, her composure cracking. This is a trick. She's trying to sabotage the ceremony. But the elders weren't looking at Ji-hai anymore. They were looking at the boy in her arms, the supposed heir, and comparing him to the girl in Jovi's. The boy had light brown hair, round features and soft, unremarkable eyes. Nothing about him resembled Hyuk-jun. Nothing about him carried the unmistakable mark of the Song bloodline. But Ariel did. When was the boy born? One elder demanded, his voice like iron. Ji-hai faltered. 3 years ago. And when were you with Hyuk-jun? We've been together for 6 years. Then why does he look nothing like him? Another elder interrupted. The whispers turned into murmurs. The murmurs turned into accusations. The timeline doesn't match. The resemblance is wrong. Who is the father? Ji-hai's face went white. She clutched the boy tighter, her voice rising in panic. You're questioning me? I am the mother of the heir. I am. You are a liar. The voice came from the back of the room. An elder with silver hair and a cane stepped forward, his eyes cold. We have suspected for years that something was wrong, he said. You blocked every independent verification. You refused bloodline tests. And now we see why. Hyuk-jun turned sharply. What are you saying? I'm saying, the elder replied, that the boy is not yours. The room exploded. Voices erupted in shock, anger, and disbelief. Ji-hai screamed denials, but her words were drowned out by the chaos. And through it all, Jovi stood still, silent, letting the truth unravel on its own. Hyuk-jun's gaze finally tore away from Ariel and locked onto Jovi. His voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a man whose world was collapsing. Why didn't you tell me? Jovi's expression didn't soften. You told me if I ever came back, you'd kill me, she said coldly. And you would have killed her. Hyuk-jun flinched. Ariel buried her face in Jovi's shoulder, her small body trembling. The syndicate elders stepped forward, their faces grave. This ceremony, one of them declared, is over. If this story is hitting you differently, subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories. You'll want to see how this ends. The chaos in the hall showed no signs of settling. Voices overlapped in accusations, disbelief, and demands for answers. Ji-hai clutched the boy tighter, her face a mask of desperation, while Hyuk-jun stood frozen, his empire crumbling around him. Then, from the back of the room, a frail voice cut through the noise. "I have something to say." The crowd turned. Dr. Kong Min-soo, the syndicate's longtime physician, stepped forward. He was an older man, thin and pale, with trembling hands and eyes that refused to meet anyone's gaze. He had been the one who declared Jovi unfit 6 years ago, the one whose medical report had sealed her exile. "Dr. Kong," one of the elders said sharply, "what is the meaning of this?" The doctor's voice cracked. "I lied." The room went silent. 6 years ago," Dr. Kong continued, his words spilling out in a rush, "I was approached by Park Ji-hai. She threatened my family. She said if I didn't falsify Jovi Sinclair's reports, if I didn't label her as disloyal and unfit, my daughter would be harmed." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hyuk-jun's head snapped toward Ji-hai. "What?" "He's lying." Ji-hai shrieked. "He's a senile old man trying to save his reputation." But Dr. Kong pressed on, his voice growing stronger. "I fabricated the evidence. The emails, the financial records, the so-called proof of betrayal, it was all forged. Jovi Sinclair never betrayed the Warang Syndicate. She was innocent." Hyuk-jun staggered back as if physically struck. One of the elders stepped forward, his face dark with fury. "You're saying Park Ji-hai orchestrated the entire exile?" "Yes," Dr. Kong said. "She needed Jovi gone. She needed to secure her place beside Hyuk-jun. And I," his voice broke, "I was too afraid to stop her." The room erupted again, but this time the anger was directed at Ji-hai. "Enough," an elder roared. He turned to Ji-hai, his voice cold. "If Jovi was framed, then this entire ceremony is built on lies. And if the boy is not Hyuk-jun's son, then you have deceived us all." Ji-hai's composure shattered. "You don't understand. I did what was necessary. Jovi was weak. She questioned everything. She would have destroyed him. So you destroyed her instead," Jovi said quietly. Every head turned toward her. Jovi's voice was calm, but it carried the weight of 6 years of pain. "You framed me. You exiled me. You tried to erase me. All so you could stand where I stood." Ji-hai's face twisted with rage. "You were nothing. A low-ranking strategist who thought she could challenge the system. I gave Hyuk-jun stability. I gave him a family. I gave him—" "A lie," Jovi interrupted. "You gave him a lie." One of the elders stepped forward, his expression grim. "There is a simple way to settle this. A bloodline verification. If the boy is truly Hyuk-jun's son, it will prove itself." "No," Ji-hai shouted. "You have no right." "We have every right," the elder said coldly. "We are the council that upholds the Warang name. And if you refuse, you condemn yourself." Ji-hai looked around wildly, searching for support. But the syndicate members were already turning away from her. Her mother, Lady Park, sat in the front row, her face ashen with humiliation. "This is your fault," Ji-hai hissed at Hyuk-jun. "You were supposed to forget her. You were supposed to move on." "And you manipulated me to do it," Hyuk-jun said, his voice hollow. Ji-hai's expression shifted to panic. "I did it for us. For the syndicate. She would have ruined everything." "You ruined everything," Hyuk-jun said. The guards moved forward. Ji-hai screamed, clutching the boy, but they pried him from her arms. She lunged toward Hyuk-jun, but the guards caught her. "This isn't over," she shrieked as they dragged her toward the exit. "You'll regret this. All of you." The doors slammed shut behind her. Silence fell over the hall. Hyuk-jun stood alone on the stage, his tailored suit suddenly looking like a costume. His hands shook. His breathing was uneven. And then, slowly, he descended the steps. He walked toward Jovi, his eyes fixed on Ariel. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Song Hyuk-jun, the feared leader of the Hwarang Syndicate, the man who had never bowed to anyone, dropped to his knees in front of Jovi. "Please," he said, his voice breaking, "let me acknowledge her. Let me acknowledge my daughter." The room held its breath, but Jovi's expression didn't soften. She looked down at the man who had destroyed her, and her voice was ice. "You rejected me when I had nothing," she said. "Don't reach for us now that we're useful." Hyuk-jun flinched, as if struck. "I was loyal to you," Jovi continued. "I fought for you. I built alliances for you. And you cast me out like I was nothing. You didn't even look back." "I didn't know." "You didn't care," Jovi said. "You wanted control. You wanted power. And when I didn't fit into your perfect vision, you erased me." Hyuk-jun's hands clenched into fists. "I was wrong. I see that now. But please, she's my daughter. Let me make this right." Jovi knelt down so they were eye to eye. "You don't get to make this right. You don't get to claim her now, just because it's convenient. You had 6 years to look for me, 6 years to question the lies, but you didn't." She stood, lifting Ariel higher on her hip. "Ariel," Jovi said softly, "do you want to go to him?" The little girl looked at Hyuk-jun, the man with the same eyes, the same features, and slowly shook her head. She buried her face in Jovi's shoulder. Hyuk-jun's face crumbled. The elders exchanged glances. One of them spoke, his voice heavy with finality. "The bloodline does not lie. The child is his, and the syndicate's future rests with her." Another elder nodded. "If Jovi Sinclair chooses to leave, the Hwarang Syndicate loses its rightful heir." Hyuk-jun looked up, his expression desperate. But Jovi was already turning away. Min Jae stepped forward, positioning himself between Jovi and Hyuk-jun. "Let them pass," Min Jae said quietly. The crowd parted, and Jovi Sinclair walked out of the ceremony hall, the same hall where she had been humiliated and exiled, with her head held high and her daughter in her arms. Behind her, the empire Hyuk-jun had built was already fracturing, because the syndicate's future had just walked out the door, and he had no power to stop it. If you're rooting for Jovi, drop a comment and let me know. Stories like this need to be heard. Jovi didn't look back. She walked down the center aisle of the ceremony hall, her white dress stark against the sea of dark suits and evening gowns. Ariel's small arms were wrapped tightly around her neck, her face still buried in her mother's shoulder. Behind them, Hyuk-jun remained on his knees, his world collapsing inward. "Jovi, wait." His voice cracked, but she didn't stop. One of the elders stepped forward, blocking Hyuk-jun's path. 2 more joined him, forming a wall between the MAFIA boss and the woman walking away. "Let her go," the eldest said firmly. Hyuk-jun looked up, his face a mixture of desperation and fury. "She's taking my daughter." "Your daughter," the elder interrupted, "whom you rejected before she was even born. Your daughter, whose mother you exiled and condemned to death. You have no claim here, Hyuk-jun, not anymore." Another elder spoke, his tone cold and final. "The bloodline has been verified. Ariel is the legitimate heir to the Hwarang Syndicate, and until she comes of age, her fate, and the Syndicate's future, rests with her mother." "That's not how this works," Hyuk-jun growled, rising to his feet. "I am the head of this organization. I built this empire." "And you nearly destroyed it," the first elder said. "You chose a manipulative woman over your true strategist. You exiled an innocent member of the syndicate based on lies. You paraded a false heir in front of the entire alliance." He leaned forward. "You have lost the moral authority to lead." The words hit Hyuk-jun like a physical blow. He looked around the hall. The syndicate members who had once hung on his every word now avoided his gaze. The allied families whispered among themselves, their expressions ranging from shock to contempt. Even his most loyal enforcers stood silent, uncertain. He had lost Jovi. He had almost lost his empire. And now he realized he had already lost the right to rule it. "This isn't over," Hyuk-jun said, his voice low and dangerous. No, the elder agreed. It's not. But the next move is no longer yours to make. Jovi reached the doors. Min-jae was already there, holding them open. She stepped through without hesitation, and the heavy doors closed behind her with a finality that echoed through the hall. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. Jovi took a deep breath, feeling the tension slowly drain from her shoulders. Min-jae's security team surrounded them immediately, forming a protective circle as they moved toward the waiting vehicles. Are you all right? Min-jae asked quietly. Jovi nodded. We're fine. Ariel finally lifted her head from Jovi's shoulder. Her dark eyes, so much like her father's, looked back at the towering skyscraper behind them. Mama, she said softly, is that man really my father? Jovi's chest tightened. She had dreaded this question for years. Yes, baby, she said gently. He is. But he made you sad. He did. Ariel was quiet for a moment, then hugged her mother tighter. I don't want to go back there. You don't have to, Jovi whispered. Not until you're ready. Not until you choose. Min-jae opened the door to the lead vehicle, and Jovi climbed inside with Ariel. As they pulled away from the Hwarang headquarters, she looked back one last time at the black glass fortress that had once been her prison. He wanted to humiliate me, she murmured. Instead, he exposed himself. Inside the ceremony hall, chaos had erupted the moment Jovi left. The elders convened in a tight circle, their voices low but urgent. Syndicate members broke into factions, some defending Hyuk-jun, others openly questioning his leadership. Allied families began making quiet exits, already calculating how this scandal would affect their alliances. Lady Park, Ji-hye's mother, sat alone in the front row, her face pale with humiliation. Her family's political power, built over decades, was crumbling in a single night. One of the younger elders approached Hyuk-jun, his expression grave. We need to discuss the transition, he said. Transition. Hyuk-jun's voice was sharp. The syndicate needs stability. With the heir's legitimacy in question and Jovi Sinclair's return, the alliance families are already questioning your authority. We need to prepare for a coup, Hyuk-jun finished coldly. The elder didn't deny it. There are those who believe Ariel should be placed under the syndicate's protection. That Jovi should be brought back, under guard if necessary, to ensure the bloodline remains with the Hwarang. And if she refuses? The elder's silence was answer enough. Hyuk-jun looked around the hall. He saw the whispers, the sidelong glances, the alliances already shifting like tectonic plates. His empire, the one he had built with blood, cunning, and ruthless efficiency, was fracturing, and it was his own fault. He walked slowly back to the stage, each step feeling heavier than the last. The red silk banners that had celebrated his heir now felt like mockery. The golden lights that had illuminated his triumph now exposed his failure. He stood alone at the center of the platform, looking out at the faces that no longer trusted him. For the first time in his life, Song Hyuk-jun felt powerless. Miles away, in the back of Min-jae's vehicle, Jovi held Ariel close as the city lights blurred past the window. What happens now? Min-jae asked. Jovi was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Now we go home. We go back to our life. And we let him sit with what he's done. He won't accept this quietly, Min-jae warned. A man like Hyuk-jun doesn't let go of power. He'll come for you. For her. Let him try, Jovi said, her voice steady. I've spent 6 years protecting Ariel from him. I can do it for 6 more if I have to. Min-jae studied her, then nodded slowly. If you need an ally, I know where to find you. Ariel yawned, her small body finally relaxing against her mother. Jovi kissed the top of her head, feeling the weight of the night settling over them both. She had walked into the lion's den. She had faced the man who destroyed her, and she had walked out on her own terms. Back in the ceremony hall, Hyuk-jun stood alone on the stage, the empire he built crumbling around him. The syndicate's future was no longer in his hands. It belonged to a 5-year-old girl who wanted nothing to do with him, and to a woman he had wronged beyond repair. But the story wasn't over, because a king doesn't accept the fall of his throne quietly, and Song Hyuk-jun was already planning his next move. If you stayed until the end, thank you. Subscribe to Ebony and Pearl Stories. You won't want to miss what comes next.